Hello everyone. In this video, we will discuss about shortest remaining time scheduling. But before going to the shortest remaining time scheduling, so I'd like to tell about some of the concept which I missed in round robin scheduling. So in case of round robin, we all know so how that particular scheduling will work, which means if you have so many number of process in the ready queue, so we will be keep on scheduling one by one. So as we follows the first come first serve in case of round robin also. But the only difference between the first come first serve and round robin is so in case of first come first serve scheduling, so it will be work under non preemptive mode, but in case of round robin scheduling, so it will work under preemptive mode. So that could be the difference between those two scheduling. So in round robin, so if you have more number of process and the process may either belongs to the CPU bound process or the IO bound process, it might be anything. CPU bound process, which is nothing but the process that takes more time in order to execute by CPU than the IO operation. IO bound process, which is nothing but so it will take more time in order to execute IO operation than the CPU, which means it will keep on executing the IO operation than the CPU. Than the operation that could be executed by CPU. But in case of CPU bound process, it will keep on execute by the CPU rather than the IO operation. So this is what the difference between CPU bound process as well as the IO bound process. So if you have the good mixture of these two kinds of process, then there will not be uh, um, any failure or anything will not happen in case of scheduling. But if you have only the CPU bound process, you don't have the IO bound. So what happens there? So we need to follow the round robin scheduling, which means we are allotting some time quantum for each and every process within a time limit it should be executed. If it exceeds the time limit, then the process must be preempted from the CPU. So this is what the concept of round robin, and where we should keep the process, whichever the process preempted from CPU, it should be kept again in the ready queue. So at the tail end of the ready queue, we should keep all the process that were preempted from the CPU. So if you keep on storing all the process again and again in the ready queue, so what happens there? So it will not give chance of any new process that may enter into the ready queue, because we keep on doing this preemption. And here also, if the time quantum is very low, then the context switch will be increases. So if you increase the context switch, then your performance will be degraded, which means the CPU will be allotted, it will be engaged in more time in order to perform only the context switch rather than execution of the process. So here, what we have, we have another concept is said to be auxiliary queue. So we are maintaining, in addition to the ready queue, we have this auxiliary queue, and whichever the process that is actually preempted from the CPU, so we are actually keeping all those processes in the auxiliary queue. And the scheduling takes place, so whenever scheduling, so it may takes place the process from the auxiliary queue than the ready queue. So in ready queue also the process will be scheduled, and the similarly from the auxiliary queue also the process will be scheduled for the process. So we can give the equal chance of new incoming process as well as the process which are preempted from the CPU, so which is kept in the auxiliary queue. And we have, in addition to this ready queue and auxiliary queue, we have some other queue which is also said to be device queue, that is input output devices. So whenever you're scheduled any process to the CPU, so when this particular process will be preempted, if the time quantum expires, then automatically the CPU will release the process currently executing process. Suppose if the time quantum does not expire, so here the executing process may need some IO devices in order to execute the IO operation. So at that time also, CPU will has to preempt that particular process. It is not actually uh, it is actually a voluntarily execution will be stopped voluntarily by the process itself, and that process will be transferred and it will be placed in any of the IO queue. So whichever the IO devices it may needs and whichever the IO operation it has to execute, based on that it should be placed in any of the input output device queue. Okay, so these are all the things that we need to maintain in round robin scheduling. So in order to avoid the same process could be scheduled for the CPU in order to complete its operation rather than the new incoming process. Otherwise, if you don't have the good mixture of CPU bound process and the IO bound process, so there will be some problem will be arised. So in order to avoid it, we have this auxiliary queue. Okay, and the next scheduling, which is nothing but shortest remaining time scheduling. So this shortest remaining time scheduling is the extension of the shortest process next. So we already discussed about the shortest job first, right? So we have one more kind of scheduling which is very similar to the shortest job first, is nothing but shortest job next. So in the shortest job next, particularly this scheduling will be followed in case of interactive environment. In case of batch environment, we can go and do the scheduling of shortest job first. So this is actually the difference, nothing more than the difference. So here shortest remaining time, which is nothing but this particular scheduling will work under preemptive mode, whereas in shortest job first it is nothing but it works under non-preemptive mode. So the same scheduling will be followed under preemptive mode. We can call it as a shortest remaining time scheduling. Okay, so now we will see one example here. We have some set of process which is nothing but process 1 to 6, and we have the burst time and we have the arrival time also. We have different arrival time here, so you may get different completion time as well as turnaround time. So let us see how to draw the Gantt chart for it. So here we have the Gantt chart. Okay, so at time 0, the process P1 has been arrived and its corresponding burst time is 8. So we are scheduling P1 process at time 0. Okay, and then we are scheduling the process. So what is its burst time? Initially, we are scheduling this process P1, and afterwards, at time 1, process P2 has been arrived. So, we are stopping its execution at time 1 and we are scheduling process P2 because it has the least burst time than the process P1. So, we have the lowest burst time for the process P2. So, we are scheduling process P2, and at time 2 process P3 has been arrived, which has the least burst time of the process P1 and P2. So what we are doing, we should stop executing the process P2 at time 2, and again we are scheduling process P3, and at time 3 P4 has been arrived and its burst time is 1, which is lesser than the previous process, that is P3. But even though at time 3 if you check it out, so what could be the remaining time of the process P3, which is also said to be 1. So because the total burst time of the process P3 is 2, so after executing 1 unit of time, so it will become the remaining time, which is nothing but 1. Here the remaining time is 0, here the remaining time is 3. So we should note down everything. And the next one, at time 3, even though we have received one more process which has lowest burst time, but P3's remaining burst time is actually 1, so both are equal. So if both are equal, so we should follow first come first serve basis. So we are scheduling process P3, so we are not actually preempting it, so we are allowing the CPU to continue its execution. So at time 4, P4 has been arrived and P5 is also arrived, but if you compare these two burst time, P4 has the lowest burst time, so we are just scheduling P4 process and its corresponding burst time, so it is actually completed, and this one is also got completed at time 5. And at time 5, P5 is already was there and P6 process has been received and its corresponding burst time was 2. 2 is less than 3, that is the burst time of the previous process P5. So we need to schedule P6 at time 5. So you have to look out, so all the remaining burst time of the previous process which is not lesser than P6. So we are scheduling P6 here, so let it complete its execution at time 7. It will be completed, so this will be completed, and afterwards um, so we need to compare the remaining process whatever we have, P1, P2 and P5. So which has the lowest burst time. So P2 has the lowest and P5 is also same burst time. So we need to follow the first come first serve. So we are just scheduling P2. So here it will be executed for 3 unit time. So at time 10 it will be completed, and the remaining is P1 and P5. So if you compare these two, P5 has the least burst time, so we need to schedule P5. So what is their remaining time, which is nothing but 3. So it will be completed at 13, at time 13. Finally we have only one process, that is P1, and its corresponding burst time is 7. So it will be completed at time 20. So this is actually the gunshot for the given example. Now we have to find out what is the completion time of each and every process. P1 has got completed at 20. So, completion time of P1 is 20, and for P2 it is 10. So, you have to scan the gunshot from right to left, so you can easily find out what is their completion time. And P3 completed at 4, and P4 got completed at 5, P5 got completed at 13, and P6 got completed at 10. P6 got completed at 7, right? P2 is 10. So this is actually the completion time of all the process. Now we need to find out what is the turnaround time. So how can we find out the turnaround time? So we need to subtract completion time by this arrival time. So if you subtract it, so you will be getting the values for turnaround time. 10 minus 1, that is 9, 4 minus 2, that is 2, 5 minus 3, that is 2, 13 minus 4, that is 9, 7 minus 5, that is 2. Okay. Next one, waiting time. So it can be calculated by subtracting this turnaround time with the burst time. So here the burst time is 8, 20 minus 8, that is 12, 9 minus 4, that is 5, 2 minus 2, that is 0. Okay, because P3 has been arrived at yes, P3 has been arrived at time 2 and it has been scheduled at time 2 itself, so its waiting time is 0. And what is the waiting time for okay. So waiting time for the process P4, which is nothing but 2 minus 1, that is 1, 9 minus 3, that is 6, 2 minus 2, that is 0. So these are all the corresponding waiting times for the process P1 to P6. Now we can include one more time in this scheduling, that is response time. Response time is nothing but, so whenever the process has been arrived in the ready queue and when it get first response, when it has been given as a first response by the CPU, which means when it has been scheduled first. So when that particular process has been scheduled first, so if you take the first process, it has been scheduled at 0. For the first time we are scheduling, we are not calculating for the second time or third time, we are just checking only for the first time scheduling, right? And the process P2 has been scheduled first as 1 at time 1, that is the response time. So P2 has also been given again, but we are not taking that, where it is actually receiving the first response, that was the response time. P3 has been scheduled at time 2 initially, so that is the response time. And P4 has been scheduled first as 4 at time 4, and P5 has been got the first response at time 10, and P6 got the first response at time 5. So these are all the response time for this process. So if you go and check it with the average waiting time, so you can check it, 12 plus 5 plus 0 plus 1 plus 6 plus 0 divided by 6, which is nothing but average waiting time. So here it is 24 by 6, that is 4 is the average waiting time for this example. Okay, so how can we follow this shortest remaining time scheduling? So in this we have included one more time, that is response time, because we are using this kind of scheduling. in interactive environment. So interactive system. So response time plays the major role in interactive environment. So we have included that time also. Okay. Thank you.